Every time we don't achieve something or don't get what we want, we by default believe that we need more stuff. We need more information, knowledge, training, seminars, clues, tips, blueprints, whatever it may be. We feel we're lacking content in some way. The only salvation is not through studying more, learning more. It's through doing more. And it's the fastest way to move forward. You go 4 years in college, and then you get a job, and it may be years down the road till you can liquidate that debt, right? So in my mind, if you could invest in education, and in 1 year, which is also during the process of being educated, you actually liquidated that investment, that's a success.
Hey guys, this is Sharad with REsimpli, host of the REsimpli Podcast, bringing you a super special guest, Patrick Precourt, on this podcast. Patrick, welcome to REsimpli Podcast. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Honored to be here and excited to have a conversation with you today.
Absolutely, Patrick. Thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast. I'm super excited to get into your journey, your experience. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you live and how are you related to this crazy world of real estate?
Well, I live in a little town called Cromwell, Connecticut. Little town, so we have 10,000 people in our town, just to put perspective to it, right? Which is in the center of Connecticut. How did I get into real estate? So I got into real estate a long time ago, late 90s. Started my first deal as a lease option type deal, and it took off from there. And the 2000s got really heavy into the short sale space, and ran that for almost up to 2012 for a long run in that space. As we all know the history of what happened during that period of time. Got into real estate education and speaking and seminars and all that during the 2007, 8, 9 period. And in that time, I started making a migration out of teaching people information to understanding and helping people apply the information. Because I'll be honest with you, Sharad, we had a big education company. Yeah, we had a big education company. So we had a large laboratory, thousands of people, and small percentage of people would be successful with the information that we provided. And the information was solid. It was good stuff,
Right.
And I started connecting the dots between the idea that every time we don't achieve something or don't get what we want, we by default believe that we need more stuff. We need more information, knowledge, training, seminars, clues, tips, blueprints, whatever it may be. We feel we're lacking content in some way, when in fact that's not the gateway to getting results and achieving and success and reaching our goals. There's a whole nother side to it, and that's us actually applying the information, converting the information into knowledge through the application, and then filling in the pieces. And it's those pieces that we get hung up on. We always think that, man, if I just knew this one more thing, then I could get right at this, right? And we always think there's more to know, but those things that we feel are missing often can only be discovered by doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Do you think that's human nature, or do you think that's something more relevant to real estate that, bogs down investors?
Yeah, no, it has nothing to do with real estate. It has to do with being human, and the overwhelming fears that creep in when we're doing new things and things are changing. So fear fundamentally is, all fear is anchored in just not knowing, right? Anything we've ever been afraid of or are afraid of, it's just in not knowing the outcome, and the outcome of the what if this happens, like the fear of failure, loss, judgment, all of that. It's because we don't know, and we don't like uncertainty. It's a part of our human DNA that makes us uncomfortable, right? So in order to mitigate the not knowing, we're like, well, if I just knew more stuff now, then I would know the outcome of what I'm about to do, right? So we keep looking for more information to try to solve that. And like I said, the only salvation is not through studying more, learning more. It's through doing more. And it's the fastest way to move forward.
I am absolutely fascinated by this topic. So I'm so glad you're on the podcast. I love talking about this stuff. How did you get to this point where you determine that, okay, we have these thousands of students, coming in through our funnel, through our pipeline. But maybe, I mean, it's just the nature of the business. It's real estate investor. You would have 100 people want to be investors, but maybe 2 or 3 actually end up doing a deal. So is that like you were looking at your numbers of how many people are successful? How did you get to that point where you're like, okay, we got to do something more?
Yeah. So my role in our education company was I was in charge of coaching. I was in charge of fulfillment of the product. So I wasn't responsible for marketing and I wasn't responsible for sales. I was responsible for the student body. So I took it personally, and yeah, I had to create some barometer of success because like who's to say what is success in something new, a new endeavor, right? So my barometer was simple, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I had to have something, but it was, did you liquidate your investment in education in the first 12 months of the program? Okay, so whatever you invested, and how I came up with that, Sharad, was I compared it to college, right? You go 4 years in college, debt, and then you get a job, and it may be years down the road till you can liquidate that debt, right? So in my mind, if you could invest in education and in 1 year, which is also during the process of being educated, you actually liquidated that investment, that's a success because now you can just go
So
repeat.
just to be clear, by liquidate, you mean, let's say if I invested 20,000 in the education program, I should make at least 20,000 during the first 12 months to recover the money that I've invested, basically recoup my capital that I invested in the
Correct.
education program.
Correct.
Okay.
And again, I'm not saying that is the perfect barometer of success in education, but to me,
No,
it
I
seems
think
like
it's absolutely it's very unique, and I absolutely love that. Like this is very refreshing to hear you taking that on yourself to make sure that you set some sort of a deadline.
yeah,
Otherwise, you see, I've been investing for more than 10 years. I remember going to like a couple of these webinars very early, 2009, 10, where they would just tell you, hey, go to the back of the room, and they were trying to like sell stuff to you, but there was no sense of urgency. Hey, we're giving you this stuff, you're paying us money, but we want to make sure that you get your money back, you get successful out of it. So I think it's absolutely refreshing to hear. So what were your numbers, like people that were coming through the
what
coaching
was the
program?
success rate?
Yeah, what was the success rate?
It was less than 10%. And
Less
I'm
than
just being
10%.
honest with you. Okay.
Yeah,
And that part didn't sit well with me.
I love
Uh,
that. Yeah.
and actually that's what pulled me out of the real estate education space and the deep dive into what I call peak performance and the science behind human behavior. And for the past 13 years, that's pretty much been my exclusive focus. Why people do what they do.
What did you notice? So you noticed that people were just in this loop of, hey, I need more something, more time, more education, more information, right? Is that what you noticed? Like people, that
That's
was just
one
their fear.
piece of it.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a little more complex than that, right? And as we go forward here, I'm gonna use some of my experience in the health and fitness space as well as examples because it's another perfect industry where the
Absolutely.
failure rate is through the roof, right? The percent of people that fail at achieving their health and fitness goals relative to the amount of time, money, and effort that's spent there is ridiculous, right? So in 2012, this is why I'm equating to that, we opened a gym called the Cage, and it became a whole nother laboratory for testing out different constructs that got people to do things that they wouldn't do on their own. So here's the ultimate challenge we're up against. When you know what to do, that'd be all the education you got, right? You know it's good for you, the outcome, and you deeply desire the results. You would think that would be enough to get you to do it. The answer is it's
Right.
not. And proof is in look at the health and fitness industry. No one doesn't know how to lose weight, Sharad. That information is so readily available, particularly
Right.
today with the AI tools that we have at our disposal. You could put in your age and your weight and your fitness activity and it will prescribe precisely a nutritional plan and a physical workout plan for you. So that's no longer an excuse. You can't say, I don't know how to do it. And the other part's automatic. You want the results, they're good for you. So my expertise has been focused on filling in that little spot right there. When those three are in place, you know what to do, it's good for you, you deeply desire the results. What does it take to do the consistent behavior to produce the results? And this I had to go through that to get to answering your question. So it's much more than just wanting more information. There's a lot of stuff that gets in the way. I'll bring in the word beliefs because people bring up mindset all the time. And I think mindset gets a lot of misdirected credit, meaning that your mind is set. Literally, mindset is a literal word. Your mind is set and you can't change it. It doesn't work that way. If it could, then you'd immediately overcome your spider phobia or your height phobia or your dislike of a certain food. If you could just change your mind, it would happen like that. But we can't change our mind. What we can do, though, is look at what causes mindset. Mindset's a lag indicator of our beliefs. So if you believe, Sharad, that you can't run a marathon, a 26-mile race with 6 months of training, if you genuinely believe that to be true, it's true. And your mindset will reflect that because you say, I can't do it. I'm not good enough. I haven't trained enough. I'm not fit enough. I'm not, I don't have enough endurance. Everybody said, well, if you just change your mindset, then you'd be okay. Like, no, you've got to change what's causing that mindset. And that's deep in our beliefs. And this fundamentally now becomes where the work is done. Because you take people who, let's say, join a real estate education program. More times than not, they've joined other programs prior, right? They've been through this game before. Right. And the challenge is not that the program doesn't work. It's that they don't work the program. And they're kind of dead in the water before they've even begun, because fundamentally there's a belief that they have that no matter what I pay for, no matter what education I get, I'm still not going to follow through with it because I never have. And I'm going to get the same results where I'll just end up quitting. So no matter how good the education is, they're working on the wrong side of the equation. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. This is something I've struggled with in the past. Do you think people also don't give their 100% to trying because they have this fear? If I give 100% and I still fail, then there's nothing, like there's no excuse that I have. Deep down, I believe people know whether they're giving their 100% or not. They might tell other people that, hey, they're giving 100%, but they might only be putting 20% effort, but they deep down know that they could do more, but they don't, because at least I used to have this fear. Okay, if I give my 100% and I still don't succeed, then I basically, then I have to accept that it's out of my reach. But if I don't give my 100%, then at least to myself, I can make this excuse. Oh, I could have done that, but I didn't make my, I didn't give it my full effort. Do you notice that? Is that something people struggle with?
I hear what you're saying. And what you just described are just simple belief constructs that you have that get in your way. You're like, well, what's 100? Who's to say you're 100% today isn't only 90% tomorrow? Because you've already, just by doing this, you've increased your potential. So the limitation you put on yourself by saying, if I give it my 100% and I fail, I'm done. No, you'll grow from that experience, and your next 100% will be a heck of a lot more than this 100%. Just as an example. Okay. But let me go back here a sec, right? To the word try. And do you think when a 6-year-old child is presented with the opportunity to learn how to ride a bike, that in their mind they go, man, I'm gonna try that? Because you got to remember what riding a bike meant to us. It meant becoming a big boy or a big girl. It meant a level of freedom and respect and status. It meant.
I mean, I can tell you, I just taught my son how to ride a bike. Like he's 7, so I taught him how to ride a bike like 3 months ago. He just had to get it done. He just had to get it done. Like every day it's like that. Let's go. Let's try it. Like let's use this. Let's use that.
Glad you just went through that experience because it helps make the point here. He didn't try to do it.
Yeah.
He just did it, meaning there was no option for not learning how to ride a bike. It was just
he's going through the same thing with swimming now.
What's that?
He's going through the same thing with swimming now. Yeah.
What if adults started to approach the things we wanted the same way? No, we're not going to try it. It's going to work out. And we will fail along the way. We'll fall. We'll scrape our knees. We'll get a little bit, might even shed some tears. But it's not like we can quit because that's not part of the equation. Like not succeeding is not part of the equation.
Oh, I love that. People don't have that mindset because the desire isn't deep enough. Is that the issue?
Yeah, so I'll slightly alter that word to meaning, right? When something means enough to us, we'll do it every single time. And conversely, if it doesn't, as soon as it gets difficult, we won't. And let's say you and I were walking down a street together, okay? We're just having a conversation like this. And we come upon a house over here that was on fire. And it was raging, but the fire trucks weren't quite there yet, you know. And they go, hey, Sharad, I'll give you $100 if you run into that house, fill this glass with water out of the kitchen and come running back out. And you'd be like, no, Pat, that's stupid. And you'd be right. I go, all right, how about $1,000? You're like, no. I'm like, all right, what if it was $1 million, Sharad? Would you run in, fill that glass with water, come run out? You'd be like, Pat, just stop, because there's nothing you could do to get me to run in that burning house. Nothing. Because why would you ever risk your life for money, right? Fair enough. Now, same scenario. What's your boy's name?
Vihan.
Rehan?
Vihan.
With an R?
With a Victor. V as in Victor.
Vihan.
Vihan.
Vihan. Okay. So we're walking along, having the same conversation, same house, same inferno, but this time, the only difference is you can hear Vihan's voice, fear, screaming for you, Dad, help, come save me. And you now know that the only way he's going to survive is for you to go into that burning house and save him. Is there anything I could do that would stop you?
No, nothing.
From going in and saving him.
Nothing.
So this is an important takeaway for everybody. Same circumstance, burning house. In one scenario, there's nothing I could do to get you to do it. In the second scenario, there's nothing I could do to get you to not do it. And the only thing that changed was the meaning in the equation. Yeah. That's how powerful meaning is in everything that we do. If it doesn't mean enough, we will stop when it gets difficult. But if it means enough, there's nothing that can stop us from doing it. That's why kids always learn how to ride a bike. It means enough to them.
Yeah, I love that, Patrick. It's absolutely fascinating. All right. So we understand why investors or people that are looking to lose weight don't get to that point, right? How do you get that belief? How do you develop that belief? You know, some people just have it. Is it because their why is big enough, so they figure out the how? Or, you know, people that don't initially have it, how do they build that belief?
Yeah, good question. Because as adults, let's just say we have, let's just say every adult has limiting beliefs without exception. Okay. It's just a matter of when and how they show up and are we aware of them. So everyone has it, because we had so many beliefs programmed into us that weren't good to begin with, and other beliefs that we just outgrew. Okay. So as an adult, we don't just adopt other people's beliefs. We don't freely let somebody just plant one in us like software. We need new evidence to override our old belief, to establish a new belief. So then the question is, how do we get new evidence? Now, take somebody who has always failed at losing weight. And I've heard the same words 1,000 times. Pat, I've tried everything and nothing works. Good. Yeah. What they're saying is, I've tried everything and I don't work. So let me focus on you working then. Forget about the damn product for a second. And what this now requires is and I'll get to the construct that gets this to happen, but some sort of construct that applies enough pressure to get you to perform the behavior that we're trying to create a pattern around, right? So this is all about, this is the result I want. These are the necessary daily behaviors / habits required to produce those results. Okay, good. Let's focus on creating enough leverage to force those habits to take place, up and until we start seeing new evidence that, yeah, I can do it and it does produce the results. And now what we'll do is simply by default, subconsciously replace that old nothing works belief with now I do work belief. And it happens automatically with the new results. But we can't get it studying. We can't get it seminars. We can't get it reading a book. We have to take the action. Now here's the leverage. And this is a part of human behavior that becomes ruthlessly predictable, right? There's an internal scale that we all have, right? It goes like this: pain of staying the same versus the perceived pain of change. When the pain of staying the same outweighs the perceived pain of change, we'll take action. So an example would be, this guy would not stop eating McDonald's every day, 3 meals a day, no matter what happened, he wouldn't stop eating. And he's way overweight. He's 150 pounds too heavy, and he can't breathe, and his blood pressure's through the roof. Still wouldn't change until he had a heart attack, and he died for 30 seconds. All right. The pain of these behaviors is finally heavier than the perceived pain of change. Now, perceived is important. Whenever we think about change, our default position is no.
Right.
Right? For all the reasons we were talking about earlier in the show. The fear of loss, failure, judgment, all that kind of stuff. We just default to no. So we make the change in our mind seem much more difficult than it actually is. We go through all these scenarios. Well, man, if I got to lose weight, then I got to get a gym membership, and I got to get a personal trainer, and I got to get a babysitter for the dogs and the kids, and then I got to order my food differently. We create this monstrous list of things, and it becomes so overwhelming that pain or the thought of that change outweighs the pain of staying the same. Okay. Now the trick here in this construct is to remanipulate the scale. Let me talk another piece about pain for a second, right? You and I, as children, were taught that pain is bad. So immediately we first try to avoid pain. And then if we can't avoid it, we got to anesthetize it, make it go away. And that might be anything from aspirin to anything else that makes pain go. As adults, emotional, mental pain, oftentimes it's weed or alcohol, but either way, it's pain avoidance, right? When in fact, and here's an interesting, really important point, pain is some of the greatest guidance and insight we'll ever receive from the universe. It's perfect, its timing is perfect, and it's exactly what we need to hear in the moment. So in other words, when pain shows up in our lives, whether it be physical, mental, or emotional, we should immediately, instead of avoiding it, distracting from it, anesthetizing it, we should stop everything and lean in. See, when we lessen the pain, we lighten that scale and we trick ourselves into staying still, staying stuck. When we lean into it, we actually feel the pain. But here's the reward. When you lean into your pain, you get specific instructions from the universe immediately on exactly what you need to stop doing and what to do next. You can't get more brilliant insight, yet we hide from it. So, summary, here's our scale. And the goal here is to feel our pain, because when the pain of staying the same, doing the same behaviors over and over and over again outweighs that change, we'll start to change. And this is how we override those broken beliefs, Sharad, that are holding us back, that are limiting us. Those beliefs that, yeah, I've made this promise to myself before and I didn't keep it. I broke my promise and I probably will break it again. Okay, good, fine. We've all done that. But now we've got to create new evidence that you can actually make a promise to yourself and uphold it. Can I add one more little piece to this?
Yeah, of course.
This whole thing. Yeah, this is important too. When it comes to change, producing results, goals, right? It's important to know a couple things. We already talked about meaning. The goal has got to have meaning. So you should ask yourself, when achieving a goal, setting a goal, the goal is the measurable, but what we want to focus on, what is the result of that result? What does it mean to us? That's where the emotion comes from. That's where the fight and the passion and that fire comes from. And we need that to get through the hard stuff. Okay. Now let's look at a really simple construct for goals and how we start reshaping these beliefs in a way that we can consistently see results and progress forward. Look at the goal that, I don't care if you want to be the goal, the guru version, the big, hairy, audacious goal, right? That's at the top of the ladder. It's way up here. Okay. But I don't want you to focus on that. I want you to put that up there so that you can put rungs on your ladder. And the rungs represent the steps required to produce the goal. Okay. These are the behaviors we got to execute on a daily basis to produce that result. So we have the goal, we have the rungs on the ladder. Now, once that's complete, now it's simple. We only focus on the next rung. You see, oftentimes, Sharad, we set this goal and the damn thing's above the cloud. And we keep looking for it. And we can't even see it. It ain't real to us. We don't believe in it. It's too big. And when you don't believe in it, you can't act on it. However, when we focus on the very next rung, we're like, yeah, that's possible. And the word possible ignites the human soul. We don't need guarantees. All we need to know is that something is possible. And man, we come alive, right? And when all you do is look at the next rung, you're like, yeah, that I can do. So back in our gym for a second, I had a gentleman who wanted to run a 5K. He wanted to support his wife. He hadn't done anything since his 20s. He's in his 40s. The whole same thing, Pat. I've tried everything. Nothing works. I got to lose 40 pounds. And a long story short was we set up the 5K. He had to be able to run it in 6 months. But his rungs started with 1 mile a day for the first 5 days. That's it. That's what I needed him to focus on. And we weren't worried about the 5K. We were worried about him rebuilding trust in himself that he can do what he says he's going to do. And all the while, we're making progress towards the goal he wanted. Make no mistake, this is not wasted time. But the powerful part is rewriting the belief system underneath it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does. I mean, I like right now, I just recently, last week, I started doing cold plunge. And the place that I go to, they keep the water at 39, 40 degree.
Okay.
Initially, when I went in, I'm like, oh, there's no way I can sit in it for more than a minute, But the instructor, the way they have set up it, like the first day, they're not required, but they really encourage you to sit for at least 3 minutes. And then once I sat in for 3 minutes, I'm like, wow, I came in with this belief that I could not do it for more than a minute. It's pretty cold water, but I sat in it for 3 minutes. And after like 30 seconds of the pain, I was pretty comfortable. Yeah, I was pretty comfortable after that. And then like I went there yesterday and I was in the water for like 12, 13 minutes. And I was like, yeah, this actually feels pretty good. But so going back to
that's a perfect example where you had to produce new evidence to overwrite an old belief.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I couldn't have called you up and said, hey, trust me, you can do it. You'd be like, no, I can't do it.
Yeah.
Fundamentally, you may even say I could do it, but you wouldn't believe you could do it until you got the new evidence.
Right.
Perfect
Absolutely.
example.
So for someone, who's, let's say, a real estate investor, right, and they're struggling to find their first deal, which is like majority of the investors out there, what would you suggest they do? Just, they set up their big, hairy, audacious goal is to get their first deal, right? That is going to be the stepping stone for their future success. But in order to get their first deal, do you suggest them that they focus just on the things that they control, the inputs, like making offers or calling leads and then just making offers? Like that's the part that you control. How would you get someone from 0 to 1?
So you bring up focusing on things you can control. There should be nothing else that we focus on but the things that we can control, period. To put any energy into something that is outside of our control is akin to creating a self-treason, meaning that energy now is being pulled out of your coffers and put out here and wasted. So you're depriving yourself of being all that you're capable of being the second you start focusing on something you can't control. And one thing that sneaks in all the time, and I mean, like I know this stuff, but I still do it myself, right? But I'm aware of it, is anytime we start worrying about a future event, period. Future event is a made up experience, does not exist, which means we can't control it. So the moment our focus goes to the future, Sharad, and we worry on something, we're creating a treason against our success. So I just want to kind of throw that in there. So if I was starting out and I got to get that first thing, first you choose you got to put a pin on the map, right? You have to have a defined goal. Otherwise, it's virtually impossible to achieve. Like, for instance, if I wanted to go visit you and you said, hey, Pat, come visit me. I said, all right, I'm coming. But you never gave me an address. I would not get to where you're at. But the moment you give me an address and I put a pin on that map, I can create the perfect blueprint to get to you. Now, it may have some glitches along the way, road closures and weather and all this other kind of stuff, but I'll get there, right? So I'd say start the exact same way. Maybe it's the first wholesale deal, Sharad. Maybe it's the first contract. Well, it doesn't matter what it is. What matters is the process to go to it. So you start with the outcome, right? And then it's really, really important that we understand, or when I say understand, that we're truthful with where we are today, right? A lot of people say, man, I can't do what he does because he has all this other experience. Well, we're all freaking adults for the most part, right? We all have life experience. Very little of, and you know this for a fact, very little of real estate success has to do with real estate. has to do with people. So I
Mm.
ask people all the time, like, have you been around any people? Right? That's a much bigger part of this game. Don't play that game in your head like, I don't know enough, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough experience. Just take that right out. If you're okay with helping other people and making their lives better by their interaction with you, boom, you're in the right place at the right time. So put the pin where you're at, put the pin where you want to go. And now here's the key part. This is called strategy, but I'm going to define a little way. You make a list of all your resources and you make a list of your resourcefulness. And you use those two sets of ingredients to connect the dots between where you are and where you want to go. And what's important there, Sharad, is that oftentimes we'll either make a plan or we'll adopt a plan that we are incapable of executing because we don't have the resources of the resourcefulness to do it. Now, I will share the idea that every single person listening to this has enough resources and resourcefulness to do their first deal if that's what is on your agenda. Absolutely, without exception. I can say that so confidently because I've dealt with literally thousands of investors that went from never having been a real estate investor to doing my first deal. Okay. Now you have different resources, you have different expertises, you have different personalities, different levels of resourcefulness, but you have what it takes. The missing link, the part that's challenging, is the doing the work, the actually making the phone calls, banging on the doors, driving around and finding vacant houses, and then doing the work to look them up and reach out to them. That's the hard part. Does that make sense, Sharad?
Right.
And that's if somebody came to my doorstep today, today's what, Tuesday, and they needed a deal by Friday, it would be in that space. They'd be on the ground pounding away. They'd be making outbound phone calls. They'd be texting people. You know, who do you text? Anyone, everyone. And if it's not, if they don't want to sell their house, ask if they know someone who might want to sell their house. People need solutions right now. I know you know this, right? And they need investors to step up and provide those solutions. All you got to do is reach out and connect with them. But doing the work, and the last part I'll say is there's still questions that you have, and I understand that. But those questions will be filled in as you're doing the work. You'll get constant feedback, and that's something that you've got to make part of the process, a feedback loop. So here's something I use as a little personal tool, and you can apply this to a singular event, or you can apply it to wrapping up the day or wrapping up the week, wrapping up the quarter. It doesn't matter. It's a debriefing exercise, and it's super simple, Schwab, but it gives us marching orders to move forward on. It's most effective when we really screwed something up really bad. But it
All
goes
right.
like this. Five simple steps. One, what just happened? And you just recap you put a title on whatever it is you're about to debrief. Well, I made an outbound call to a home seller and it started to go really good, but then the husband jumped on the phone. He screamed at me and called me names and I started crying. Okay, good. Excellent. All right. That's what we're going to debrief. Then you go through this 4 steps. What worked? What didn't? And you'll have items in both of those. Those are data. The next one is analysis, which is what did I learn? And this requires you to stop and think about the learning lessons that came out of the experience. And then finally, this is our marching orders. What am I going to do differently tomorrow? And that's where we summarize that little experience through the data collection and the analysis. And once we have that marching order, we can throw out the rest of it and move on and just keep moving forward. If you do this every day or multiple times a day, the growth curve goes like this, goes straight up, versus letting experiences happen and come to pass and not changing our behavior or our knowledge or our going forward out of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It absolutely does. And it goes back to I talk to investors all the time. At the end of the day, like similar to your point, you mentioned that you set this goal, and then after that, you almost have to forget about the goal and focus on the daily habits, the daily
Mm-hmm.
actions that you need to take. So, like putting it in a context with someone who's 300 pounds and wants to get to 200 pounds. Yes, you set that goal, but after that, there's no need to jump on a weighing scale every day. You're not going to be 200 pounds the next day, but like if you set a goal of, hey, I'm going to walk 10,000 steps every day, I'm going to monitor how much food I'm eating or what I'm eating, and those are the two levers that you control. And then you just do that every day. You walk 10,000 steps. and you eat healthy, then you maybe check in a week or 2 weeks later to make sure you're going in the right direction, right? And then that's kind of how I look at my real estate investing business. I live in California. I invest in Indiana. I haven't seen any of the flips that I do in like 3-4 years now. And this year, we're going to do about 25, 30 flips. I personally make about 400, 500,000 out of it without me really doing anything. It's my team. And then my project manager lives in California. My acquisition manager lives in Philippines. We don't even have anyone local in the area, but we're very particular about the daily actions that we're taking. That's the stuff we control. I mean, yes, of course, there's things that go wrong. After we sell a house, we just had a $4,000 plumber bill come up because the sewer was, like they had some issue this year. But that's just part of learning curve. When you next time when you buy a house, you learn a little bit from the previous mistakes you made, and then make sure you don't repeat the same mistake. And it's just iterative process. You keep getting better and better at it every single day. So yeah, absolutely 100% agree with what you said. And yeah, it's been absolutely fascinating um, to talk about that. With what you're doing now, are you still working with real estate investors? Or are you focused
Mhm.
more on healthcare industry or like personal fitness industry? Like what are you noticing that's working for investors with their mindset? Is it just getting them to focus on the daily habits? Is that the biggest challenge you run into?
Well, there's a lot of challenges. So no, so my general category is entrepreneurs, and I do a lot of work specifically with men in there, and I work with everybody, but I do a lot of work with just men too. So we go through. So we're talking about a lot of the early onset challenges in entrepreneurship. There's later challenges too, finding purpose and meaning in life, and those kind of things that I work with a lot of entrepreneurs who from one person's perspective, they've arrived, these people, but they've arrived and now are more unfulfilled than they've ever been in their entire career, you know? So I work with everybody across that whole spectrum. Right? And I guess in context to this conversation, it has nothing to do with fitness world or real estate investment or anything like that. Humans are humans. Human behavior is ridiculously predictable. Shy of some sort of mental challenge, there's almost nothing we can't get. There's nothing I can't get a human to do, provided they know what to do, they want it, and they know what's good for themselves. Those three ingredients, right? The rest becomes very mechanical, and that's why I call what I do evidence-based personal development. Because, as you probably know, the personal development space can be kind of fluffy and intangible at times. So I like to make it very mechanical and measurable. And it genuinely is. Before I end, let me bring up one good point that you said it, and I just want to make sure people didn't miss it, right? And I'll use again the weight loss just as an example. If your goal is to lose weight, the weight should not be the measurement that you're so in tune to. The behaviors necessary, consistent, repeated behaviors necessary to produce the weight loss is what we should measure. And that's what we should hold ourselves accountable to. As well as I do, Sharad, you can make 100 outbound calls and you may get 100 no's, right? So you can't control them, but you can control the fact that you're making the calls, right? And over time, the numbers will work out in your favor. It's just a numbers game. So our value each day should be measured in the success of the execution of the behaviors that we agreed to do, not in the outcome of that. That will come. And I'll share just one other thought, that the only thing different between you, meaning this, everyone's listening, between you and that person that you want to be, meaning that person you look up to or you compare yourself to, the only thing different is their daily behaviors versus your daily behaviors. That's it. It's
Yeah.
no more complicated than that. I
Yeah.
know you want to think that they're smarter and they have more resources and many more years of experience. They're all contributing factors, but that's not what makes it happen. What makes it happen is the behaviors, the execution that they take every single day. And that's where, if you want to see change in your life, that's where our focus has got to be.
Patrick, 100%. Like the last 2-3 minutes of what you said, that is the secret to success. Like focusing on the input that you put in and that's it. Like
Mhm.
just do that day in, day out. It's impossible for you not to succeed. It's impossible if you're doing the right things. Like if you're walking those 10,000 steps every day and if you're eating healthy, it's just a matter of time before you get to the weight that you want to get to. It's impossible not to get to that. So absolutely fascinating conversation, Patrick. Thank you so much. We have a couple of last questions to ask you.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun?
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
this may not be exciting to other people. Okay. So when I'm a big boater, we do a lot of boating, and that's just, I've
Nice.
been boating all my life. That's a big thing for me. In the winter, we live in the Northeast. So in the wintertime, one of the favorite things my wife and I like to do is go out and find live music, like small little 1 and 2
Yeah.
man bands. We love that type of music. And then my solo hobby that, so this is outside of my physical, like athletic world of martial arts and rugby and all that kind of stuff, which are just when I've been a rugby player for many, many years and got involved with martial arts, fighting MMA, cage fighting later in life. And those will always be a part of me. But my solo hobby, like when you just want to be by yourself and just be, I love work. I have a collection of old Land Rovers that I love wrenching on. I love working on them.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. I'm not a very good mechanic, but I love doing it.
Yeah, no, it's you're getting better every day,
Yeah.
What's the one book that's had the biggest influence in your life? It could be a business book or personal book or one of each.
Well, there's no one book, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Or
I'll
like
get,
right now in your life, if you want to, like the one that you can think of recently that you've read.
yeah, so I'll give you one that I always go back to, okay? And I go back to it for a number of reasons. It makes me think, and it's written in parables, and the parables are usually a page and a half or 2 pages long. So you can just open the book and start right there at any given time. But I like to think, like deep thinking, and it always triggers a direction for that. The book is called The Warrior of Light.
The Warrior of Light.
The Warrior of Light.
Thank you for that. Yep, definitely check it out.
Super cool book.
Yeah. Final question. If you could spend a day with anyone, dead or alive, who would you want to spend the day with and why?
Wow, without putting much more thought into it, I probably would bring my dad back for a day.
Great answer.
I find, so my dad passed better part of 12 years ago, I think. Still, I don't think a day goes by where I don't want to ask him a question.
No, great answer. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Patrick, this has been absolutely incredible podcast. Probably one of my favorite. If someone listening to this wants to connect with you, learn more about your journey, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah. So the easiest way is just to find me on social media, just my name, Patrick Precourt. You'll find me or my son, and you'll probably be able to tell the difference. And I'm easy to reach. And if anybody ever has any questions or wants to reach out, just message me through any of the platforms. I'm really easy to get hold of that way.
Perfect. We'll put links to all of them in the show notes.
That would be amazing.
Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your experience, sharing your journey. It's been absolutely incredible. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.